What's up, everyone? Welcome. We are live right now on Cannabis, and if you're watching us on YouTube or on Spotify, thank you so much for joining us. We have a great episode for you today. This one's for the growers. We're going to be talking with OkCalyxx, talking all about FPJs, IMOs. We're going to be talking about organic gardening and all the fun stuff in there. So if you want to learn all about that, stay tuned. We're going to be going through all the details. But before we do, we need to make some shout outs to our friends in the community. First off, shout out to everyone in the Cannabis community. Those are our friends and followers of this podcast. If you want to join us and help make this thing possible, you can download the Cannabis app in the iOS store, or you can go to cannabis.app in your browser and use the code BUZZ for your first month free. Your support helps us go to events, helps us sponsor different things. We sent JR to the Dude Grows Cup. And so all your support helps make these things possible. And so if you want to be a part of that, join us over there. We'd love to see you over there. And then let's see, last shout out from me. I'm gonna give more shout outs later in the show, but also we're just gonna say real quick, make sure to follow us on Spotify. We're trying to build more of our audience over there because YouTube seems to not be so cool with cannabis content these days. So make sure to follow us over on Spotify. And we'd love to see you over there. You can watch the show, you can comment, you can listen to it just like a podcast. And Spotify is totally free. So download it, or if you use it for listening to music, just search Cannabis in there. And we'd love to have you follow us on Spotify. And then I'm going to throw it over to JR. And JR, you can do the intro to the show too.
Excellent. Today, we are very fortunate to have OkCalyxx here on the show with us. He's educating folks this year at the OkCalyxx Autumn Immersive, and it's going to be really good. There's going to be the kind of information that you could take home and really do something with, and it's going to be very hands-on. So it's going to be a great, great event. Highly recommend you go. This event is going to be October 11th through the 12th in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. I hope I pronounced that right.
Tahlequah.
If you're into natural style farming, this is going to be a great opportunity to learn more about FPJ, IMOs, all of that kind of good stuff. So please welcome to the show, OkCalyxx.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate appreciate you asking me.
Well, I should go ahead and get started. When we have a new guest on, we always ask our guests how they fell in love with the plant and how the plants helped get them where they are today.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's going to be a whole show, so I'm going to have to shut this. I'm going to have to condense this, and please know that I can't exhaust everything I have to say in this short little clip. I have so much more to say than what I'm about to say. You know, my first page, OkCalyxx, was all mental health through natural farming. Anyway, trying to condense as much as I can. I used to suffer with depression and anxiety. Thought I just got a bad card in life, going to die early. I had no idea what was going on with me whatsoever. Did a lot of drinking, used pills and all the junk, just like many of you guys out there listening right now. And on August 26, 2016, just sitting in my living room. I had been using cannabis for about a week. There's a big, long story behind it. It is illegal in Oklahoma. Oh, man, it was crazy times back then. 2016, 2017. Sitting in my living room, had a Bud Light, had drank about the neck of it, and I had just gotten high that day, and I had no feeling in me whatsoever to drink. And I was just like, and guys, remember, I'm medicating on vodka. I'm into it. You know what I'm saying? I'm fighting depression and anxiety through alcohol. Like I said, like many of you guys out there are doing right now, there's a way out. And I'm telling you, I've made it out by God's grace and with cannabis, with the help of cannabis. I went straight cold turkey on everything I was on. And I was addicted to the opiates and the alcohol. And it was a bad, probably year and a half of just trying to dry up, trying to learn how to think correctly. Got into therapy, got into cognitive behavioral therapy, which you learn to think correctly so you can live correctly. A lot of times we get looped into a negative thought. We get embarrassed, so we drink to get that thought away. But then you wake up and the thought's looping again. It's a real thing that we all do. It's just not you, whoever's listening. It is not just you looping that same thought that keeps bringing depression or whatever the case may be. there are ways out of that. And I didn't know that. I just thought I got a bad deal in life. And I'm like, well, whatever. I'm going to die, maybe an alcoholic. A lot of my family did too. So here we go. Because I couldn't feel okay. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was just straight up suffering with anxiety and depression. And there are ways out of that, guys. So I want to shout that out. It's because of cannabis and God's mercy that I was able to never touch a pain pill or alcohol again since August 26, 2016. I've used cannabis. I've used other recreational things that grow out of the earth because they're also beneficial to me. But that's my story in a pretty small nutshell.
That's really cool, man. I think that's kind of a common theme for a lot of folks as far as, using cannabis to help, get away from some of those cycles of abuse that we've been doing to ourselves. And I think one of the important things you brought up is that trauma loop. You have trauma, you have things that you're environmentally born into, and those create those loops of self-defeating behavior. And using cannabis and fungi as medicine for mental health are very, very powerful tools to kind of help break those loops, those cycles. And I got to tell you, hats off, man, because just going cold turkey like that, that's brutal. I mean, it really is brutal. It's not easy on the body, and it certainly isn't easy on the mind.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was the hardest part. Is the withdrawals went away after a few weeks. You're like, okay, something's a little different. I don't like it, but something's different. I would rather feel different. But the withdrawals go away, but the mental anguish that you're dealing with, your brain is a recorder. And it wants to support you in your cognitive biases. That means if you wake up one morning, you're like, this day sucks. It's terrible. I hate this day. I've got to go to work and I hate my boss. Well, your brain's going to say, let's look for every single thing we can find to confirm that guy's biased thoughts right now. Your brain wants to support your habits. So you have to understand, you better choose your habits wisely. You're going to have your habits. We're all going to do whatever we do. But there are some things, guys, that are going to take you down fast. And it's going to be that mental battle back out of the dark hole that's going to be the toughest. Like I said, it literally took me a year and a half, maybe 2 years to get to where my mind got silent. That's a lot of work. But, guys, it took me 45 years to create the monster I had created up there. It's going to take a while to fix that thing.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Because like you said, it's years of abuse mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that takes time. That takes time. And so much of the world we live in now is designed to kind of divide us from that divinity that lives within us, which is the strength that we can use to get out of these situations. So, like I said, they become loops and they become traps. And that's a very powerful story. So I'm imagining that this journey kind of led you down your kind of desire and longing for natural farming. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, this kind of gets into where I am now with what I call natural farming my way, because I've gone through the methods and the steps, read the books, listened to all the awesome guys that are out there, and kind of realized that, man, Mother Nature does what she's going to do, whether you want her to or not. So if you put a pile of organic material on the ground, you don't have to do anything to it. Mother Nature will transform it into something she wants to use. So I'm starting to realize, started realizing, I don't know, 8 years ago now, maybe 6 years ago. I'm still fresh to it. The cannabis has only been legal since 2018, so it's not like I've been on this trail for a long time. I was a gardener and a grower. My families are farmers and fruit market owners, and I worked at the fruit market, all that stuff. However, I never grew cannabis, and that opened the door to a lot of new types of growing that I had never done. I used Miracle Grow. I used Seven Dust. I did all that stuff, right? That's how my dad did it. He was a farmer. He used chemicals, and we're out of that now, and he's still alive, but his mind is blown by what he calls the no-till method. I'm like, yeah, that's what it's called. He's like, you don't till at all? No tilling whatsoever. He's on a tractor his whole life, tilling up crops and tilling up farms, fields. That was kind of in me, sorry. But then when cannabis comes around and becomes legal, then there was this whole, like you're kind of saying, there was a spiritual mentality. There was a psychological aspect to growing cannabis because it was working on me up here. And you have to know, just smoking cannabis ain't gonna get you mentally healthy. That's a false thought. It's a tool. It will help you if you're taking those steps. It'll give you energy to keep climbing. It'll fill the gaps that you need as you're walking forward. You know, you'll feel a little more complete. You're like, I got a little help. I got something that's just pushing me forward. I like it. But you're working on yourself. You're working on thinking correctly. You're working on living correctly. You're working on helping others so that you feel unhelpless. You know, organics got me into all of that. So when I started growing, um, I started growing cannabis as soon as I could. I was already doing gardening, but I started growing cannabis as soon as I could, and so I went down the Fox Farm method because that's what was at our local farm feed store immediately when it became legal. I mean, the next week, Fox Farm products were there with nutrients, with lists of here's the time to put your nitrogen, and all the stuff we've all seen before. And so, as a newbie to growing cannabis, not guerrilla growing, but actually thinking, okay, this is how you really grow cannabis. You got to have these nutrients. You have to put it in at a certain time. You have to do all this stuff. You have to have certain soils. I was in that mess. I was in that track on that track for about a year and a half or so. But then what I started realizing was soil is expensive because I started realizing outside I can grow some really big plants. You know, get them up 10 or 15 feet. That's a good sized plant. It's going to put a lot of hash straws in your your refrigerator. But soil became the issue, and I was having to buy more Fox Farm soil, and having to re-amend it. But then I needed more because a lot would wash away. You'd lose some in the root ball. You know, you always need more soil. So that's when I started. I was composting already, but that's when I like quadrupled my composting efforts. Got 3 massive composting bins. They're each about a cubic foot of eventually of done compost. And I got hooked up with a fruit market that was here. The owner actually knew my dad, who, like I said earlier, we were fruit market folks, and he knew my dad, who lived in Tahlequah, and so we had a good little relationship where I would go to his store and I would get all the leftover fruits. And guys, in the summertime, not all fruit is eaten. There's too much. The abundance that's the time of abundance. So you're reaping and you're bringing it in, and you're having a wonderful time. And there's leftovers. You know, that's how good it is. But those leftover fruits were just sitting there rotting to the side of his business, and I started getting it by the truckloads. And I learned all about composting then. Started making a ton of compost. And in about 2 years, I had so much compost, I was filling just my big 30-gallon pots full with just compost. And I got a slap called Straight Out of Compost because I was literally grown straight out of compost. I was making my own soil, really. I mean, we call it compost, but it works like soil. I started growing out of it, and then I didn't have to buy soil because I was making enough. I also went to a store here in my town and was getting their leftover vegetables and things like that expired. So I had a lot of compost. I was making a ton. I don't make that much no more right now because both of those stores, one of the stores locks their trash cans now by city ordinance. The other stores moved about 5 miles away, a little too far for me to go. But I got 5 kids, man. We make a lot of a lot of compost. I mean, if we use it all, I'm going to have a cubic foot of compost every 8 months. That is a lot. I add stuff to it, grass and leaves and whatever else. Nonetheless, made a lot of compost. When I started getting into KNF and learning this IMO steps 1 through 5, I learned about IMO 4, and I realized that I'm basically doing this IMO 4 thing where I was adding some wood chips to my compost because the compost would pack down super tight in those pots. It needed something else. So I was just adding wood chips. I was adding sunflower stalks. I was just because it made sense that it aerated it. It made it sense that it made it fluffier. It made it lighter. Gave it some space down in there where air would be. So I'd mix my compost with this woody bits and realize I'm basically making IMO 4 right here. And I started growing out of IMO 4. I started cooking a good IMO 3 is what I did. I'd cook a good IMO 3 up. All of my, cooking means you inoculate it and let it heat up and the microbes multiply. And you see the empirical evidence of the microbes there with the hyphae, with the bacteria colors and things like that. But I'd cook up a really good IMO 3, mix it with my compost, and man, my plants are they've been fabulous ever since. And again, the point of the natural farming my way is I didn't cook my IMO4 according to KNF directions, and it still works. Doesn't mean KNF directions are wrong. No, we don't go there with this. KNF is great. It's taught me great stuff. I have 5 kids. I can't spend all my money on the things I want. I have to spend my money on my kids and things they need. So I learned to farm for free. Started gathering my IMO3 bits out here in the yard, out in the woods behind my house. Started composting for the native soil bit of it, or I'd go out there in the woods and gather under a stump some nice dark soil, mix that all together, just make a good soil. Mother Nature uses it immediately. She knows what to do when you stick plants and seeds in it. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of my journey on getting into growing cannabis. I started learning how to make good soil, and then my plants started getting really big, and now it's just a focus on soil. Even if the genetic might not be that great, I'm going to get a beautiful plant out of it. My genetics are what I grow in my own place. I like the things I'm growing right now, but they have been growing in this environment for probably 6 years now, 5 to 6 years. They have experienced this environment over and over and over. Like today is about 102, sun shining all day long. You'll see leaves on other plants kind of start to wilt just naturally. It's hot. Lots of plants will wilt. I've got my Triana Grandes out there, and they're just praying, but they were bred in this weather. They've grown out here. They've been F2'd in this weather, so they're used to it. But it's the good soil is my point. They enjoy that soil they've been growing in out here. That's what I learned with growing cannabis: make good soil.
So that excuse me, that soil you called it an IMO3, is that right?
And
Can you break
IMO4, what I grow out of.
right? So can you break that down just for us so you can help us help our listeners understand? We've had some episodes where we've talked through some of these subjects before, so people
Yeah.
might be a little familiar, but I'd love for you to just kind of explain, because I know everyone listening to this show is growers, and you just said I'm growing awesome plants in IMO3 or in IMO4. So what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Okay. So great question. And this is a KNF side of the organic discussion. And know that there's a Jadam side of the discussion also. And Jadam is like a younger sister of KNF that kind of went her own way, similar looking. I think she's hotter than KNF, but that's that. I do Jadam. I took the gold from KNF, right? I took what worked for my environment and keep using it, because that stuff does work. It's good organic farming and growing and good inputs. But I took from KNF what worked in my environment. Jadam is so simple and basic that I think basically anybody can do Jadam anywhere. You just need organic material and water to start the basic JLF stuff. But Jadam is super simple, so that's what I do. But I have taken parts of the IMO for my growing. So I don't use all of the IMOs is what I'm trying to say. I use the ones that work for me. So you don't have to use them all. So let's begin with IMO 1. Let's begin with IMO. It means Indigenous Microorganisms, IMO. And that means the organisms, that bacteria, fungi, yeast, things like that, that are in your environment, your local indigenous environment. Those are what we're dealing with. And there's a big discussion on should you only gather the microbes in your local environment, or should you go outside of your environment and bring microbes in and apply them and see if you have, good or bad results. Testing it, seeing what works. So IMO, we want to gather some of those microbes that are in our local area. And so KNF teaches you a way to do it. And it's a great fun way. You will learn so much. It's not hard, guys. Remember, just because it's foreign and feels difficult doesn't mean it's hard at all. Knowledge will change every bit of that, and you'll be okay. Just get a little knowledge, and trust me, the steps are fast forward quickly. So IMO 1 is whenever you're going to cook some rice. Cook some rice. I don't worry about al dente. I don't worry about any texture. I put my rice in my rice maker and I walk away, and I come back later on, I get it out. So I've got my cooked rice, however much you want. What a lot of KNFers will do is they will use a cedar box. A cedar box, because cedar is antibacterial naturally. So when you put your rice in there, it's not like the container is contaminated right now and you're getting what's in the container. You're actually trying to have something that's antibacterial on your surface that you're using, so that indigenous microbes can come and join in the party, and they're eating the food that's in there, which is the rice. So you would take that rice out in the field somewhere, put it under a tree, by some bamboo roots, by the creeks, or by the bank of a creek, Places like that, places that are damp, places that are dry. Experiment. You can do all kinds of things with this, but the bigger point is you're taking rice out into the wild, leaving it there, allowing bacteria, yeast, fungi, all kinds of saprophytic things to come in and just start eating on it, which are really precursors for the bigger, better bacteria and fungi and biology you want later on, which comes kind of in the IMO3 stage. These are precursor microbes that do the work at the beginning so that other things come in and say, yeah, let's do it. The idea is like, compost. You get black soldier flies coming in, they poop that out. Then red wigglers want to come in and live on that stuff. The bacteria have done it. And it just kind of is a thing that happens. So once you get your rice out there and those microbes come and they start to eat on it, you start to see what they do on organic material. Fungi will create the hyphae or the mycelium, the clouds. And in KNF, it teaches you to only take IMOs, IMO 1, sorry. That's the rice that we put out. It's called IMO 1. KNF teaches to only take IMO 1 samples that have white, furry hyphae, which is fungi, basically. And there's plenty of arguments. We can go both ways. No, it's mold, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to go real basic, please. Now, like I said, I can't exhaust everything I have to say in this short show. Go with me. Fungi is on the rice, okay? So that's good, because then we're going to take that and we're going to do something with it to create a carrier and then inoculate everything in the world we can with what we're about to create later. But we have gathered up the fungi. And now KNF only says take the fungi. And there's reasons, guys. There's reasons behind this. Go visit Chris Trump. Very easy to go look on YouTube, do his stuff. He's a super nice guy. I've talked to him before. Great guy to learn from. And he's all KNF.
Yeah, we had him on the show a couple months ago, and
awesome,
the main things that we talked about were IMO 1 and IMO 2. And so we're kind of wanting to progress that conversation with you, because I feel like a lot of the content and a lot of the stuff you're putting out kind of takes it beyond stage 2 and starts working it into applicable scenarios for people who are farming.
Okay, you want to go straight to IMO 3 then?
Yes, yeah, I would.
Let's do that. Let's fast forward. Yeah, let's do that then. If you had Chris Trump on here, you don't need me explaining IMO 1 or IMO 2. Thank you. No thanks.
No, it's all good. I mean, folks, the listeners of our show like when we dive deep into stuff, especially on the grower side. So I think they'll dig it for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's move to IMO 3, because I think IMO 3 is the most versatile IMO level there is, the third phase. And again, I used to think, what do you call IMO 3? Do you say it's the IMO third level, IMO phase 3? It doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want. It's IMO 3. It's that third thing we did with it. We've done the 1, we've done the 2. And now the IMO 3 is really fun. You can use all kinds of material. When I first learned IMO 3, I read about it, and then I realized, okay, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to go gather the stuff in my yard, because it's organic material that gets broken down by microbes. Woody bits, microbes, twigs, bark that's fallen down, an old tree that has fallen, a stump, anything. When you grab a stump, it's called sponge wood. When you can just pull that wood off, it's just eaten up. There's just nothing left to it. It's ready just basically to fall on the ground and be reapplied as an amendment as dirt. You know what I'm saying? That's what wood chips is. The basic amendment for dirt out in the woods. It's got all the microbes, it's got the carbon, and it's just home for microbiology. That stuff makes great IMO 3. When you go hunting for IMO 3, like I said, I went out in my yard and scraped up stuff. Once I was like, okay, this makes a fun IMO 3, but the texture's not there. That's the important part with the IMO 3. You want a texture that's usable for growing in later on. And pine cones aren't the best. They don't break down. They're pokey and hard. They stay here for years, right? Leaves, they don't break down well. They web out, right? The inner parts, but the veins stay, but the inner parts will go, but the veins are always there. The webby, they don't make a good soil. So now the idea is, with my yard scrap, make a good IMO 3 for, let's say, mulch. It'd be great to scrape up your yard stuff, inoculate it with some labs, some IMO 2 and all that, let it heat up, and then just dump it on your no-tills or wherever you want to dump it. It's great inoculated organic material. However, if you want to use it later on in the IMO system, you need something that is a proper texture for growing or a proper texture for like an addition as an aerator, like rice hulls. Think of that feel, fluffy and kind of grainy, crumbly feel. So going out in the woods, finding an old stump, finding a fallen tree. This is what we're going to do in Tahlequah at the OkCalyxx Immersive, October 11th and 12th. Go out into the woods, show you where to look, show you what the best material is, what trees are the best, what part of the stump to start scraping on. You'll start finding mushrooms in there and things like that. And that is all great material to just grab all that stuff, get a tote, get a 5-gallon bucket, whatever, but you want the woody bits. That's basically what it is. Just good woody bits that are sponge wood. They can be a little hard if you want, but you can also have other material if you don't just have woody bits. Like I said, I've gone to a park. I did this on my old page. I went to a park and showed all the different nuts, magnolia leaf pods, fallen branches, mowed grass, scraped all that stuff up, put it in a tote, made IMO3 with it. It's just a great inoculated material that you can put as a cover, a mulch cover, or do lots of things with it. Put it in your JLF. I've done that before. But the IMO3 is an inoculated material that you can use to transport. Basically, what you're doing is taking all those woody bits and you add more microbiology to it. You add like labs, lactic acid bacteria. You can add Bacillus subtilis, trichoderma. You can add all those bacteria if you want, or you can just add a bunch of your IMO2 that you know how to make, right? If you listen to this show, you know
Can
how
I
to make
stop
your...
you there?
Yes, sir.
The one part we never really got to was, okay, I've got my container, my vessel of IMO2, it's made. How do I get that kind of liquidy substrate built into those materials that you're kind of talking about?
Yeah, really good. So let me tell you this. I'm going to plug myself. On my webpage, OkCalyxShop.com, I have what's called the IMO3 Starter Pack. And it has all the nutrients, the IMO2, a little bit of IMO3, everything you need to basically put in a 5-gallon bucket, add water, and dump onto those woody bits. Set it in a tub and let it heat up, and it'll be your great IMO3. Now, what you would use with the IMO2, you would just take a big spoonful, a cupful. I'd just take a handful, throw it in a 5-gallon bucket. Guys, you can use a lot, you can use a little. The point with organics is you made the IMO2 and it took you about 2 weeks to do it. Do you want to use all of it right now in this 5-gallon bucket? That's the idea. If you do, then do it. If you're making more, go for it. But if you're like, dude, I ain't got the money and I have the time, well, then don't use a lot. Use a little. Microbes multiply. You have to remember that also. It's not like just, I only use that much. No, you use that much of microbes, then you sent them out on a surface that they like, and now they're going to live and multiply and breed. So it's okay to use just a little bit. But in a 5-gallon bucket, I would try to use about a cupful. That'd be a good amount of IMO2. And what you can also do is just take IMO2, put it in a 5-gallon bucket, stir it up, apply it to your garden as what's called liquid IMO2. It's that simple. You can bubble it in a tea. You can add it to teas. I used to bubble it with compost teas when I did all that stuff. But in the KNF method, you're going to use the IMO2 to inoculate material. You're going to inoculate those woody bits that you went out into the woods and found or gathered up. So that's why IMO2 is actually for in the system. But there's lots of things to do with IMO2. I love IMO2. I'll put IMO2 directly into my compost. It's great to put it all over the place. Put it on top of your pots. Water it in.
So essentially, it's like your starter dough of like what a sourdough would be. It's basically your mother ship of microbes that you're using. And like you said, once they get out and proliferate, if you create the right environment, it's just what they do. It's what they're designed to do. So when you're kind of expanding your IMO3, and you feel like you've got it where you want it, and you want to start integrating it into your compost and your soil structures, how do you do that?
Yeah, so on my Instagram page, at OkCalyxx2, I just put up like a video that kind of shows it. But it's basically I'm going about, let's say 2/3 compost, 1/3 IMO3. And so that's close, give or take, guys, give or take. IMO3 is not a growing medium. Compost is. compost and IMO3 is, but just woody bits, not great. You know what I'm saying? So you need good medium, which is compost or native soil in the K&F method. You go out into the woods and just find some good, dark, rich soil, bring it back, mix it with the woody bits, and there's your IMO4. So I'll ask the question again. I got off there, please.
I was just, like you kind of touched on it, how you integrate once you have your IMO3 into your soil structures to make your kind of IMO4. So another question I have is there's a lot of companies out there that sell microbe products that are, fungi and bacterial based products, and they're in dormancy. How are those how are those in my mind? I don't know. The thing I try to justify is, why am I paying for this? What is it actually doing that is so much more targeted and better than what I'm going to be collecting in my IMO collections?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that I kind of think on this. There are some microbes that are in a bottle that sit in a shelf that were bred in a laboratory in perfect conditions so they can multiply the most they could to make the most product they can. It doesn't mean the product doesn't work, but the environment it's bred in matters, because if you go spraying these bacteria out here in the 150 or 115 degree Oklahoma, August afternoon, and they were bred in a 90-degree environment in a lab, they're not great out here. They're not going to be great workers. They're going to struggle a while to figure out what the heck's going on, because things have changed up. That's the way biology works. Temperatures matter, environments matter, competing pathogens. All those things make microbes strong. Out here in the wilderness, it's the strongest will survive, but in the laboratory, it's whatever they're growing will succeed, because there's no competitors. So buying microbes out of a bottle does work. I ain't trying to hurt nobody's feelings here at all. However, the microbes in your indigenous environment, the IMOs out there, are the ones that have been working in that environment for hundreds or thousands or whatever years, and are the winners out there. And they're the ones that are helping the plants in the soil succeed. They're the ones on the plants that are helping them succeed. Those are the ones that have stood the test of time out here. So those are the microbes that will really be quite beneficial also to your plants. And they might even be more beneficial to your plants because they are the indigenous microbes out here. With IMO2, it's all your indigenous microbes. So if you took some of that IMO2, dumped it in a 5-gallon bucket, strained it a little bit, and then filled your sprayer, sprayed it, it's a great IMO spray. Getting microbes back onto your leaves to help fight pathogens that are coming your way, instead of going and buying it. But maybe you don't have the ability to make IMO2, and I get that also. Get your products for real. But eventually in organics, you kind of learn to make these things.
Yeah, and I kind of see our lactic acid bacteria that we're using, our serums, is kind of in that same principle. I use those myself with the fish hydrolysate as a foliar. And so when we're dealing with the labs, the lactic acid bacteria, how efficient is it at doing nutrient cycling, maybe compared to some of the stuff that we're capturing in the wild?
Well, the one thing about I'm not big on the science part of it all. The one thing about labs that we do know is they're very powerful, right? That's why we use them to make bokashi. We use them in the IMO3s, all those things. They're very, very powerful. Bamboo is one of the tallest grass we have on Earth. I've read, but I have a bamboo grow right by my house here. Big, 40-foot bamboo poles, tall. I use them in my garden. But I learned that they grow so tall because the biology around the roots is nuts. It's crazy. And most of it is labs. Tons of lactic acid bacteria that are just helping these plants grow. And guys, man, again, on my first page, that's all I can say. I went out into that grow and I showed scraping the leaves back. This is on a late March day, early in the morning, scraping the leaves back right by the roots of these bamboo, and it looks like snow is around the root, about that big, around a root about this big. And I took, boom, one dig, boom, another dig, and there was a little more, and it was all white hyphae just eating those bamboo leaves that had just been piling up for years. So yeah, around those bamboo, the microbiology is just crazy awesome, and it's mostly labs, so they're really powerful microbes. They're easy to make. That's the thing. Making labs is super easy, right? I mean, I'll tell you real quick. You put a pound of rice in a 5-gallon bucket. Use some warm water, mix that rice up, get the starch off, drain the water out, add a gallon of whole milk, and put it in some heat, put it in some hot weather, put it out in the sun, and in 24 hours to 2 days, you'll have cheese on the top, and the liquid down here will be lactic acid bacteria. Spray it on your plants, put in
And
your jello.
that lactic acid bacteria is what they're now inoculating a lot of these drinks and stuff that you're paying a lot of money for your gut health. I
Right.
use it. This is kind of off subject, but I use it for my dog because he has terrible
Yes.
gas. He has
Yeah.
horrible, horrible gas. So I know when it's time to make my farmer's cheese because the room starts stinking. And then I swear to God, I feed him this cheese for about 3 or 4 days, and I don't have problems for like 3 or 4 weeks. It's
JR
just go ahead.
JR blaming the dog.
For real.
I know. Yeah, dogs love it, don't they? They'll eat it right up. So yeah, you can feed the cheese to your dogs. People say you can eat it. I wouldn't.
I
It's
do. I
gross.
do.
Do you? Oh,
Yeah,
it's like that's rough.
it's like a queso, kind of like a queso that you dry it and sprinkle it on your tacos and stuff. It's actually really
Oh,
good.
you dried it? I've never
Let it
dried.
dry out a little bit because it comes out
I've
really
never
wet.
done that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gross.
So I wrap it in cheesecloth and then I put it in a stainless steel bowl and I just set it in the fridge.
And then you let it drain.
And then it naturally kind of drains and dries, and then
Okay.
you can crumble it on your salads and all your other foods. It's really good.
So that makes way more sense because I've made cheese before, and that's just the cheese process that you just kind of described right there. I've always tried not always. I tried to dip it out right off the top. I'm like, this is gross, but I could see it being dry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good stuff.
well, that's cool. No, I learned something. Thank you very much.
So how do you kind of monitor your temperatures? Because I know like there's a point where it's too hot and damage
Yeah.
is going to happen. I know that lower temperature stuff takes longer time and it's not going to hurt anything, but there is kind of that crucial too hot. How do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, so I always tell people if you don't have a thermometer, which is about a good one, about $20 on Amazon, a thermometer that you stick in the wood, that the woody bits that will tell you how hot it is. And the longer the probe, the more expensive it is. So, excuse me. You can't hold your hand in 120-degree IMO3. It's going to burn you. So when you can't hold your hand in that, it's too hot. If you don't have a thermometer, you can stick your hand straight in the middle of that thing. You'll feel the warmth. And again, if it feels nice and warm, it's like, oh, this is good. Okay, you're at probably a pretty good temperature. I mean, if it's feeling warm, like you say, all things are good. That's what biology does anyway. But if you get it too hot, the problem is you actually start to kill off microbes that work efficiently in your local temperatures, which are at 90 to 110 in the summertime, something like that. So we kind of want to max out around there, 110, 115, something like that, because our local environment doesn't go that hot. And once you start to go above that, you burn off your microbes and you basically get what is a thermophilic substrate, a thermophilic medium. That means you have thermophiles. That means you have microbes that can handle temperatures about 150 and up. And they like those temperatures. And other than that, they don't like to do a whole lot, right? That's the idea. So you're trying to create temperatures that reflect your local environment. You're still you're trying to keep it indigenous. You're trying to match what's local. And so our temperatures aren't going to go above 110, 115. So don't go above that because you start to kill off the microbes you're actually trying to,
Right.
harvest in there.
So to bring us back to making this kind of soil that you were talking about for your plants, and you were talking about that was your IMO3, and you're kind of adding in your IMOs to your compost, like you were saying earlier.
Yep.
So like I like to do vermicompost just because it's easy for me, like in totes and stuff like that. So let's say I'm like combining those two things together. How long do I wait for it to do its magic? How do I know when it's done? That sort of stuff.
So once you've cooked your IMO3, once it's hit its temperatures and you've kept it around 110, 115 or so for a few days, it will naturally start to recede in temperatures because the microbes just aren't as active. They've used up a lot of the fuel and eaten a lot of the food and things like that. They're just chilling now. But it's all over the material. That's kind of the end of cooking anything. Now it's just mixing and getting it to a texture that you want to grow in. And what you can do, again, you take your IMO3 and your compost and mix it together, fill it. If it's good soil fill, put it in a pot, pack it in, put it in a pot, and then pour water in it. See if it'll hit a good field saturation, or if it just drains all out, or if it's holding that water on top. That will give you an idea of what you've mixed up. And you can go, you can go accordingly. If it didn't drain well, add more IMO3, which will give a little more aeration. If it drained too fast, you need more soil, so add some more compost. And that's just a good way to tell if you got a good growing medium. That was the way I figured it out.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you're using this for soil, because I guess traditionally, when we talk about making soil, you have like you got your compost and you've got peat moss or whatever, and then you've got a third aeration, right? Typically, right, like lava rock or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're using wood chips and things like that as your aeration. I guess it's just kind of, as I'm listening through this, I'm just wondering, yeah, how did you handle that aeration? But that's coming from your IMO.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be it.
yeah,
Yeah, you can use, I've used corn cobs before, believe it or
that's
not.
cool.
It worked and they just broke down. You can go out and get sticks and twigs. That stuff works. Little hay works, rice hulls. Lots of things that work for a natural aeration to get a good soil made.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah, no one's going out there and dropping a bunch of white stones into the forest or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, really, for real. Hey, so why I have you on, I have some selfish needs that I could pick your
Yeah.
brain about. I had mixed my kind of modified Coots mix in June. It's been sitting in my hot garage since then. And I'm just now getting to the point I got in about 3 weeks, I'm going to need to start using it again. What would you recommend I do to kind of bring that life back up and get it just supercharging again?
Yeah, man. So I could only tell you what I would do with the tools I have here in my setting, right? My environment. So if I had a big bag of that good Coots mix, or I mixed up a good batch of it. It's like you say, it's been sitting there chilling and cooling down a little bit and just getting to meet each other. I would definitely get some IMO3 in there. And this is what I would do. Let's say I got a tote full of that stuff. Half of a 5 gallon bucket probably be plenty, but mix a 5 gallon bucket, about 2/3 full of water, add some IMO2, right? Get that mixed up. JLF, which is Jadam liquid fertilizer, which is a whole different side of organic growing, but add some JLF in there, which is just a liquid fertilizer that you make at home with leftover scraps, leftover food bits, sets in water, and it just absorbs the nutrients. Microbes just fester in there, and it's a great liquid nutrient that you can make yourself. I would add the JLF in there. You know, it, it's okay. And listen, let me say this too. It's okay to use product. It's not, as I say, it's not cheating if you use a bought product. You can I want you to say it. You don't have to have all the stuff that I have at my house because you might live in an apartment. So use things that, you see people on Instagram that have good products. Use those things if you need to. It's no big deal. There's one product that I used that was the first guy that ever talked to me on Instagram. He saw me growing. He's like, dude, you got good plants. He's like, spray a little of this on there. Anyway, I'm gonna plug them real quick because they've always been very kind to me. Terabiotics on Instagram. They sell Ultra Bio Boost. I've given this away many times. They have a sell discount thing. OkCalyxx 10, I think it's what it is. But I use the product and it's awesome. I love it. High bacteria, high trichoderma, high fungi counts in it. Just as a foliar, it's great. But that's something I would add to that material also. It's just good stuff. So it really is up to you. With organics, overdoing it is unnecessary. It often doesn't lead to a lot of problems, but it uses all your product. And if you have soil, you need to feed it just a little bit. You don't got to go crazy on it because plants aren't just consuming everything you put in that soil. A lot of that's going to wash away. So just begin lightly, work it. See how your plants like it, and then start to press the gas with a little more of your nutrients or something like that. But I would start off with a few of those things, JR.
I think that's great advice because I have IMO 2 that I have in a jar, and I also have some fermented plant extract
Oh,
of
yeah.
bamboo shoots
Oh,
because
yeah.
the bamboo shoots. So I think I'm going to mix up a bucket of that, like you said, and just inoculate each bin because they're in 27-gallon like Home Depot totes.
Yeah. Good
So
stuff.
I'd what you'd say like water in a gallon maybe on each tote.
Yeah. Stir it up, mix it up, dump it out, scrape it back in, all those things. Get it all mixed up real good. With that soil, here's one thing that I would also do. And it's because I have enough totes. Drill holes in those totes. That moisture will collect at the bottom and you will get an anaerobic stink to the soil. And I've had it stink for a grow. The whole time I'd be just like, I smell it. I smell it in my hands, and it's because it was too wet when I was creating it. So it needs to drain. You got to have the water get out of there. It just wants to be moist, not wet and damp.
No, that's huge advice. That's huge advice.
Yeah, I've had the same thing happen in my worm bin because I use those same bins for vermicomposting. Um,
Yeah.
all right, JR. So let's see. Do you want to get into IMO 4, or I guess we've already
Yeah.
kind of been there, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into IMO 4. What was your question in that section, JR?
So when you're integrating 3 to 4, what are the kind of the long-term balances that you're kind of looking for to make it to where you can reuse this soil and keep it inoculated over time?
Yeah. So again, it's the texture you're looking for. I can't stress that enough. The texture will guide you. You could There's so many things you can do. It's kind of like with the IMO4, it's a very good growing medium. It's an inoculated soil, and hopefully the soil has nutrient in it also. So you have high microbiology from the IMO3, and then you got some dense nutrients from the soil that you're using, hopefully, which creates the beautiful IMO4. Now, IMO4 is now a soil. You could top dress with it if you wanted to, but again, here's the point. It took me 8 months to make 1 cubic foot of compost. I'm going to blast through that real fast, I promise you. So do I want to make IMO4 to top dress, or do I want to make it to grow in a big old fat pot and get a fat plant out of it? So you got to start because you don't have limited resources. You will have to start learning. Okay, I can only use this much because I want this later on. And so with the IMO4, I'm just making a good soil, and this is how I cycle it. I grow it. I create the IMO3, and I make the compost, mix it together. I might add some JLF, some labs, some JMS, Jadon microbial solution, things that are real easy to make and to add. And I'll grow in pots with it first. I'll get my plants out there, outdoors, get them in some pots, get them growing big. But then I'll take that whole pot, dig a hole in my no-till spots or something, or make room, and boom, just put that pot right there, no cover, just the dirt pot, make a little bit of a hole for it. And then that IMO4 just goes right in my no-tills, and it stays there forever. So I don't really re-amend it or reuse it, you know what I'm saying? But I do have an ultimate end in that it's going to be in my no-till spots, definitely. So that's why I want to make a good IMO4, because I know eventually that's going to be replenishing my no-till spots.
And now, from some of the things I've been hearing lately, if you are limited in your compost supply, that foliar applications of compost are far more effective than actually, trying to build it into your soil. Can you kind of speak about that?
There's no question. I found that foliaring with compost extract was so good that I put it up on OkCalyxShop.com, compost extract. It is that good. It really is. And it doesn't take much at all. Compost extract, though, different. Let's say that you want to talk about the difference between a tea and an extract of compost. Kind of explain that one. So a compost extract, what Jared just mentioned, is when you basically, the best way is put compost in a bag of some kind that's porous, and then you just strain it out in the water like a tea, right? Make a tea. You're just letting the good stuff get out, the biology, the small little bits that are going to go deep down into the soil, and then when you're done with that, pull it out. There's your compost tea. It is that easy. You can bubble that tea if you want. You can do anything you want. You can mix IMO2 in it. You can put some IMO3 in there if you want. You can do whatever you want. But I would say at least take a quart of that, strain it real good, mix it by half with water, and spray that all over everything in your backyard. And you will see the difference. I give this to my neighbor. I'm teaching him how to grow organically. This is his first year of really attempting it. And he's using the compost teas right now. He's making his own JLF over there, and you can foliar with JLF, JR. You know that you create a great foliar with it also. But that's a compost tea, a compost extract. That's a compost extract. Did I mix those up, JR? Hold on. I apologize. Hold on. I mixed it up. I'm so sorry, guys. I just explained to you a compost extract. That is where we're just basically making a tea. We're extracting the things from it. I'm sorry, I confused myself. I was thinking tea bagging. My bad. You're going to use the tea bag to make an extract. So my apologies. We made the extract using it that way, and still spray the extract all over it. Now, a compost tea is when you start to add ingredients. You can get a 5-gallon bucket, and you actually can put the compost in a bag and leave it in there while you bubble it. Or you can just dump a handful of compost in there. That works too. But then a tea, you can add microbiology. You can add your IMO2. You can add other things, and you put a bubbler in there, which pumps oxygen in there. And so it's feeding aerobic microbes that want oxygen. That's what you're creating in that, and it'll make a big froth, just like a beer. It'll have all kinds of biology in there, and that's a tea that makes that. But teas are involved. They take things, right? You have to have things to add. You had to already make things or bought things, and they really become unnecessary in the long run. Basically, in my environment for sure, but I think almost in any environment, a compost extract, simple to make and easy to spray, and that's always my choice. Compost extracts and fermented plant extracts.
Yeah, I've been playing around with the fish hydrolysate ferment.
You making it or playing with it?
Making it, and I've been using it all summer, and to great effect. I use it with the labs. I'll spray lactic acid bacteria mixed with fish hydrolysate on like you said, everything in my yard. I spray
everything,
everything. So with the labs and when we're making preparations with our labs and our fermented plant extracts and our IMOs, are there like kind of schedules that you kind of go where you're doing, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This is the time I do this, and this is the time I do that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's definitely times in nature where certain inputs are easier to make, for sure. Heat always helps with most of these inputs, right? If you're in a cold environment, these things often take a long time. It's going to be hard to make labs in a cold environment. Those microbes that are in there, they need some heat to convert the things they're doing. They got to get excited. They got to have some heat to do their thing. So in the summertime, it's always easy to make labs outside. Just set in the sun in a day, you're going to have your labs done quickly. You can make JMS, Jadal Microbial Solution, which is where you use potatoes and water to create this bubbly liquid, and you can spray that directly on your plants also. Cooking in IMO3, trying to get those temperatures up. You don't want it just to set at 80 degrees when you're cooking IMO3. You do want them up there. You want those temperatures that we're going to grow in. So let's get them up there to 100 degrees, 110 degrees. I went blank again. What are we talking about? Dang it.
We were just talking about kind of scheduling and knowing the time, because your plant, you've got your infant stage, you've got your toddler, you've got your teen, you've got your adult, and then you've got your old timer.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of curious, how you're cycling with your foliars and your applications to kind of go through that time period.
Okay, so with plants, you want to try to talk what we would spray on a plant kind of thing as we go through the stages of the plant.
Yeah. So what are you
So
timing as they're kind of progressing in your IMO or foliar applications with IMO?
So what I do then as teens, I will use FPE or JLF, and my measurement, like a teen, meaning a seedling or a small little baby plant getting about this big, that kind of a thing. I would mix 1 teaspoon, not tablespoon, 1 teaspoon to about 32 ounces of water of JLF, of IMO2, liquid IMO2, of fermented plant extract, of labs, of whatever you want. That is a great little start to get a little bit of something on those plants. That don't need a whole lot already, but a little protection, right? It's a good thing to spray on them. So 1 teaspoon to 32 ounce. It's a basic sprayer. A basic sprayer, is about a 32-ounce sprayer. Once they start getting a little bit bigger and they start getting into a bigger pot, bigger pot size, they're starting to get a little taller. I'll go 1 to 2 tablespoons into that 32 ounce of JLF, of labs, of IMO2, of Ultra Bio Boost, of whatever the heck I want to spray on it, because those measurements are plenty low enough that you're not going to hurt the plant. You're not going to burn it, because when they're little, yeah, you can burn them. You can be dumb and spray way too much stuff. Yeah, you can mess plants up, but they're easier to mess up when they're little. And so you just back off of them. Yeah, it's quite easy to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I made that mistake recently. I went full strength on a clone, and it was like nuked the thing.
Yeah, I don't like it often. There's vegetables out there also that do not like JMS or labs.
Right.
Okra and cucumber, when they're growing, they do not like any of the stuff I've ever sprayed on them. So I sprayed nothing on those things anymore. And
hydrangea flowers don't like it either, man. Mine got really
burns them.
pissed. Yeah, they got really pissed.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, as we're kind of wrapping up towards the end, we mentioned the event at the beginning of the show. I wanted to make sure, but can we go ahead and talk more about the event that you have coming up, what people can expect to learn and what they can expect to hands-on do?
Yeah, so we're talking about this is a collab with Growcast, Jordan Rivers at Growcast. Check him out and go to growcast.com/events. That's where you can sign up for the OkCalyxx Immersive, growcast.com/events. This is a 2-day event. You can do 1 or 2 days. And it's October 11th and 12th. We begin, I believe, Saturday morning. And I talk about the circle of rice, or at least this is what I talked about last year. I have the right to change my syllabus if I want, but the idea is the circle of rice. I'm going to start with rice, and I'm going to basically take you and show all the spokes you can draw on your organic wheel and connect them all. With rice, you can make labs, right? And from rice, that with cooked rice, you can make IMO1 onto IMO2, applying it to IMO3 and 4. But with labs, you can make FPE, fermented plant extract. You can apply that to bokashi, or for wheat bran and make bokashi. And I'll show you the spokes. These are the things you can make from using this one little package of organic material. Rice is real cheap, first of all. It's everywhere. It's abundant, so let's use it. And it creates great food for microbiology. And that's what's so fun about the rice. And I teach you all the things you can do with rice. So we call it the circle of rice, as opposed to the circle of life, right? And then what we do is we get into more details of how to hands-on use the things we talked about. We will have made those things, the FPE, the labs, let's see, what else will we make? The IMO2, the IMO1. Those things that we make, we're now going to use those on other materials that we have gone out into the woods and gathered also. We brought those back, and now we learn hands-on how to create these things. We've made our inputs. We've gone out to the woods, what needs to come together to make something that is really spectacular and useful in growing. And that's the hands-on thing that we want. We want you to be able to ask any question at any time while we are out in the woods learning, literally in class learning, right? And my background, I went to Europe and did a lot of studying at different universities there. Um, I keep going playing, Jared. I'm so sorry. Hold on, I get it back. But studying over there, you bring back all kinds of fantastic ideas. You know, when you go over to Europe, I learned how to make beer. It's total microbiology. And it was so cool to see the old school methods that are used, but it's actually just biology that they're using. They didn't know that. I say that because these are kind of the methods that I used to make beer, but I'm on the wagon now. I don't drink anymore. But these methods now are still old school methods. These are old farming methods. They're old books, Japanese, especially Chinese, Korean books on farming that you learned, man, they were collecting their poop and their urine. They were composting their foods and materials. These are ancient ways that we in America kind of think are new because our farming is chemicals and plowing. But these methods are old. And I saw those methods when I would go over there to Europe. I'd see it in the beer making process, the cheese making processes, all the different cool things that were old. Anyway, I fell in love with organics because it took me back. It skipped a generation. It skipped my dad, if you will, and took me back a generation before agricultural farming and stuff like that, where we used the honey wagon. We sprayed our poop on our fields and stuff like that because that's what we did. And it's a cool thing. But I'm going to take you out in the woods and teach you those old methods, man. That's what's going to be awesome about it. And I'm going to talk a lot, so I'm going to have a good time. So show up and ask all the questions you want.
One thing else I wanted to mention is not that this should be a motivation for folks, but there's a very generous kind of gifting when you leave. You don't leave empty-handed. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So guys, what I'm doing, that's one of the things I wanted. So when Jordan and I sat down to create this thing, I was like, so I'm going to create my syllabus in a way that I'm going to enjoy it. If I showed up, this is what I would do. Or if I showed up and the class happened like this, I would just be pumped. And so I was like, dude, you got to take home products. You know, when you're first into this stuff, the daunting thing is, so we make this stuff, huh? You know, it's like, okay, so somebody's got to show me, somebody's got to teach me. And, you know, those processes are going to be shown to you, but also I have already made a lot of this stuff. Bokashi, IMO 3, Labs, IMO 2. Last year I made IMO 5 for you. This year we might do some OHN for you. We had seeds. I had all my genetics. I had Jordan had all his organics and all his sponsors that bring stuff. They took home all kinds of stuff. But besides the prizes that I had got from companies and from friends, you know, I had Terabotics give me the Ultra Bio Boost that we gave away. I had Kennedy Natural Farming give me like these 3-foot long loofahs that are full of thousands of seeds. You know, that was a prize. I gave home bundles of dried okra, which is just simply seed for next year. Cool organic stuff that it doesn't matter if you don't think it's cool. I thought it was cool, and I feel like I'm blessing you when I give it away. So that's really what matters, you know, that feeling of me helping. That I want to help you out. I want to give you knowledge and experience, but here you go. Here's some stuff, man. Get started because it's a whole new ball game when you got the knowledge, but you have no experience, and it's another ball game when you don't have any inputs, you've never made anything whatsoever, and you've read a book. And it's like, gosh, this is no fun. Like having somebody tell you how to do it is awesome, but then also taking that product home with you and be like, yes, I've got some right now so I can smell it, right? So I can just look at it and see what it's supposed to even look like when I make it, or at least what it looks like when OkCalyxx made it. That's what it looked like. So it should be okay. It's just there's a lot of things that are unknown when you start making things. You get to be like, should it cook that long? Should it smell like this? Is it supposed to have these weird colors on it? Can it be wet on the edges? List goes on.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I hope to actually be able to get out there myself. And just kind of a plug on August 31st, we will have Jordan from the Growcast on the show
Nice.
to talk about things. I also work for the Do Grow Show, and I booked him years ago. So we've had conversations, but I'd like to get some more information about this event and also catch up with him as well.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. He's a professional. He's easy to work with. He is all about helping people, man. He was at the Terp float here in Oklahoma, in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, actually, same place, two weekends ago. And man, he was handing out seeds. He handed out thousands of seeds. And he's just walking up to people like a seed evangelist, walking up, say, man, here's some seeds. You know, he's wearing a shirt. Ask me how to get free weed. And so everybody's asking. And he's like, here, learn to grow. And he's like, here's some seeds, here's your
Yeah,
stuff.
there you
Like,
go.
it was
That's cool.
awesome. It was
Just
fun.
add water.
Smart.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Before we let you go, I want to give you a chance to plug or promote
Yeah.
anything you want. So, where can people learn more about you or keep in touch with you? Things like your YouTube, Instagram, or whatever, website, everything.
You bet. So my first OkCalyxx was shut down about 2 months ago because of whatever crazy reasons they got. Anyway, it was shut down. Growcast's going to try to help me get it back. But you know what? My happiness doesn't come from Instagram at all. The sad thing about it is all the mental health stuff and mental health talks I had that people enjoyed. And I like that because I needed that at one point in my life. So I'm giving it to people now. But you can go to at OkCalyxx 2, as you see right down there. That's the new page, just putting some things up. OkCalyxx Genetics is another page you can go to and look at, lots of different flowers people are growing. I also have the webpage, OkCalyxShop.com, which has lots of different organic bundles. I like to sell bundles of things. $100 or so, you're going to get a bunch of different inputs with information on how to use them and what you could do with them. All that kind of fun stuff. And also genetics are on there. I have in my garden growing right now my Cherryana Grande and my Orangelina Jolies. And those are some delicious, fruity, orangey, Tropicana terps kind of thing. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see I got some massive trees growing out there. They're big. They're about 13 or 14 feet right now. Everybody's in about week 1 of flower. So it's going to keep on stretching. But those are my spots. I got a YouTube page also, OkCalyxx. Go check that out. But other than that, man, I appreciate you guys letting me talk. I know I chat a lot. I get inspired when we talk about growing organically and talk about men becoming better human beings so we can help other people out, because we matter here on earth, and what we do will reflect on our family, on who we are. So let's be good people. I'm a tumbling coach also. So all I do is coach kids. So I'm an encourager big time. And I learned that encouraging men and women my age also helps, just like encouraging little kids.
Yep.
We all can use encouragement.
That's true.
Yeah. And I find that a lot of the people who walk around with hard times they're just broken children to begin with. You know what I mean?
That's correct. That's right. You said it, dude. You know what I always say? It's just that. I tell parents, let's fix your child right now so we don't have to fix that adult, that broken adult. And that's exactly right. And we are all the broken kid. If we don't have somebody come in our life and give us those things we need to hear because you needed to hear it when you're that kid, we let another generation go into the loops, the family generations, the alcoholisms, the dealing with dependency, and
So
not
true,
with
man.
conflict resolution, letting you know that counseling is okay because you don't know what you're dealing with. Your brain is so freaking powerful. You've messed with something you shouldn't have. Those kind of thoughts and talks. We need to have those. We can live better and easier lives, and it's fun living this way. It's crappy living in depression.
People over time, like you said, they get into those cycles and they lose kind of sense of who they are. And I think the fungi and the plant-based medicines bring you back to who you are inside, the soul that was born inside you. And it helps you center. I think the fungi and the ibogaines are really powerful for getting you there. And then the cannabis kind of keeps you there. And you can use it, like you said, as a tool to kind of moderate things in your life, whether it's sleepless nights or stress after a hard day of work.
That's right. You're able to reflect on yourself better.
Yep.
And that's the thing. You have to go back to that childhood thought that broke you and say, that ain't got to break me now. I understand. I was a child. Whatever happened to me or whatever I did, I was stupid, and that's not me now. I grew out of that. You go and you build yourself back. You say, no, I didn't have to feel like that for 10 years of my life. That was a false thought, and I was basing my reality on a false thought, and I was living as though it was true. what a sad life that is that I lived for 40 years, right?
Right.
Yeah, those I agree. Earth medicines center you, they balance you, they bring you back. You know, I lost 40 pounds when I stopped drinking and all that and just use earth medicines. I lost 40 pounds, man. It was just inflammation all over me. You know, that's one thing that CBD helps with is that inflammation. And inflammation is probably the major or the biggest cause of your anxiety. Your body and joints getting all inflamed up. The reaction your body has to it is to create anxiety in you so that you start getting restless and all that. You start breathing shallower. You start thinking, I got to think about everything right now. You know,
Yep.
it's hard to relax and it's hard to center and focus a little bit. And it sounds quite,
The other thing too,
spiritual because it is.
I think people get locked in a cage, and sometimes even when the door's open, they don't know how to get out. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
think those things will center you and help you walk through that door to get out of that cage.
I agree, dude. You nailed it.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate that message too. Like you were saying about kids, I've got a 1.5, almost on the way to 2-year-old, and I
Nice.
have a lot of those thoughts. So I appreciate what you were saying. Really appreciate your message.
Awesome.
We appreciate your time, JR. Thanks for putting together the show. Thanks to our sponsors and supporters, sacred3mushrooms.com. If you want to grow your own fungi at home, go to sacred3mushrooms.com or tanazigardens.com and use the code Cannabuzz. He'll give you 10% off and you can grow your own fungi at home. And then also saying thank you to lostcoastplanttherapy.com. If you want to use an organic IPM spray in your grow outside or inside, check out Lost Coast Plant Therapy, and we appreciate their support. And JR, I'll give you, if you have any more shout outs before we need to go.
Just check out TikiMadMan. He's got some great genetics out there at tikiseeds.com and Tiki Cuts. And also check out Raw Genetics at rawgenetics.io and secretselections.io. I have a menu coming out Monday. I'm going to have some Z Pie and some Tiki Rain. And Tiki Rain is a very special medicinal strain. It's very high CBDA, very high THCA, and it's also got CBG in there. It's got some rare terpenes, ferrocene, and some other stuff that makes it really, really unique. It's a true hybrid in that it's kind of traditional sativa bred with a very traditional indica. So it's very, very good for folks out there who are suffering.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, OkCalyxx. Thanks everyone for watching. And as always, JR, growers
Growers
love.
love.
Peace, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.